All right, let's welcome in, as we do every Monday at this time, to break down the weekend in Husker land, Ben Aude from the BA Coaches Show. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Hey, pretty good. I'm not waking up, with the 5-0 Husker team, but we got the next best thing with 4-1, so I'm good.
I like that optimism.
Could have been 3-2.
Hey, let's. Yeah, we'd still be on the air doing Big Red Overreaction. We'd have some hard discussions. So let's start there, because I started the program by bringing up the idea of, hey, are you enjoying 4-1? And it's still a mixed bag about 5 games compared to a first half against Purdue, a really, really bad team that just fired their OC. But let's check the pulse. In your opinion, 5 games into the season, what is Nebraska football?
I think we're still getting a mixed bag with Nebraska football. I think there's definitely some big improvements to be optimistic about. I know, kind of like what you said, that first half, I cannot come on your, radio space airwaves here and be
swear.
Oh yeah, that was a good thing. I can't come on here and lie. But I do think there is some real optimism in a couple things there. I do truly believe that the last few teams that we've had would have found ways to lose that game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you guys feel, but that's how the last 2 or 3 years would have found ways to lose that game, going 0-0 at halftime, then giving up a field goal right after that. So I think the real optimism that there's been some criticism throughout the season of coming out of the second half, we're not making adjustments, we're not doing this. Well, we did that. We put 28 points on the board. Granted, we had a touchdown from the pick six, but still, I do think there's some real optimism of, hey, this team was in a very ugly game. That was one of the ugliest halves of football I've probably watched in my life, that first half, just by both sides. And they found ways to win. They found ways to win by 18 points. They put points on the board. They made adjustments in the second half. So I do think there is optimism there, at least.
I want to go to, again, the way that you watch these games, too, because I'm sure you were getting this question quite a bit on Saturday, and that is the ebbs and flows of play calling with this offense, what Nebraska we feel is good at, what they're still trying to be with the running game, types of guys they use in certain situations, and we've had a brief conversation already today about Emmett Johnson. What has been your overall feel for how they're using personnel in situations and what this overall play calling Marcus Satterfield and crew look like?
I like, for the most part, what Marcus Satterfield has been doing. Now, that just because I think part of that just comes from I partially understand how hard it can be to call a football game. Now, granted, not a Power 4 college football game, but I can at least understand the intricacies of that a little bit. But with that being said, Emmett Johnson's got to get more carries, right? I mean, that's kind of been my takeaway. And then after seeing that again on Saturday, that's kind of my biggest criticism. Now, there's obviously some things towards the goal line I haven't been loving. I think, Nick, you put out a tweet that it said something about, why did we not do what we did on fourth down? Why did we not do on second and third down?
Right.
I'm with you there. I kind of made a little joking comment to you on Twitter that was like, oh, no, we're just trying to drain more clock. But obviously I'm joking there. But, I do agree with you. I do think there's some things that I don't love. But I think overall there's been kind of a little bit of an overreaction to – I don't think he's doing terrible, if that makes sense. I do think there are some things that we'd like to clean up. And I think if we had him on right now, he would probably say there's some things that, he'd like to change up a little bit just when it comes to that personnel thing. Because I don't know, even that play with Carter Nelson at the goal line, I love Carter Nelson. It seems like every time he touches the ball, I just get excited because I like seeing him do great things. I didn't love that. I can't lie. I didn't love that play just because, when we have these guys in here, I don't know. To me, the Carter Nelson one, I could at least understand getting Gabe Ervin the ball, trying to pound him in at the end zone. I was personally cool with that. I understand, the whole Emmett Johnson, but I was cool with giving Gabe Ervin a shot just because that's the type of running back he is. But I do have to at least question the Carter Nelson thing. But I'll be real. To be fair, if that thing goes an extra 3 to 6 inches into the end zone, we're not going to be sitting here talking about how weird of a play call that was. would be talking about how genius that was. So that's kind of the hard part with play calling to me personally, is sometimes we look at execution as opposed to play call, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Execution is a key word.
That's kind of how I'm feeling. Like, I don't know. That's how I felt about the Illinois game too. If I'm being real with you, is like just because Dylan threw that pass a little bit more. Like, I don't want to go back a whole nother week, but you know what I mean. Like, that play's a couple inches, away from being a brilliant play call that we're wanting to build a trophy for this guy. So that's kind of what that's how I feel. And that's kind of how I felt about the Carter Nelson play. Thought it was a little bit weird, but it's 6 inches away from being, wow, this Marcus Satterfield guy's a genius.
Yeah, I think they would love to have this offense with DR15 at the control of when we cross your 40 and we're headed towards the goal line, we're getting points no matter what. That hasn't been the case through 5 games where they're matching the points that are out there. They aren't matching that. But there's a bigger issue, and you kind of touched on it with what Nick said about the goal line play, getting all the way to 4th down. Nebraska in the red zone is 13th in an 18-team league. What happens when Nebraska gets into the red zone, Ben?
I feel like we're still having some sort of issue. And as much as I've said, like, I've liked what Marcus Satterfield is doing, I do think we're still having a little bit of trouble finding an offensive identity. And that's something that we've talked about on this program before. I've talked about it, just with other guys. I've talked about it on my YouTube show a little bit, of just being like, trying to find the offensive identity. Because I do think that at heart, this wants to be a run-first team. I think if you look at some of the things we do, and you look at Marcus Satterfield's past, you'd say this is a run-first offense. But when we're having such a hard time getting a lot of the run game together, and we've thrown a bunch of different run concepts out there, and for the most part, we're just not. I mean, I think Barney might have been our leading rusher on Saturday, and that's not a recipe for long-term success, in my opinion. As much as I love him with the ball in his hands, I don't want to take that away. We have to be able to get the power inside run game going. So I think that's part of the problem. But then when I say we struggle with the offensive identity, I'm like, okay, well, if we're not going to be able to run the ball, are we a pass-first team? Because maybe we are. But then we kind of get away. If we're going to be a pass-first team, we got to put the ball in 15's hands in key spots. And I think part of that comes to, like, on 4th and short, like, hey, if we're going to trust 15, I want to trust 15 on 4th and 2 or 4th and 3 or whatever it is. I don't know. I know this isn't what you asked, but I don't want to see a field goal kicker for a while on 4th and short. I'll be real with you guys. I know that's not what you asked, but I got to throw that out there too. I just think offensively, we got to find some sort of identity right now, and we're struggling with that.
Well, and okay, so as you mentioned that, and I think no one would disagree right now with the inconsistencies that's happening with I'll just call it the kick operation, not even just the
I'm with
kicking
you on that
situation.
It's not just the kicker. I'll say it's the whole operation.
Yeah, it's bad. That how much does that impact what you're doing on 2nd down? And to be fair, to counter what I was ticked about or confused about on Saturday when it came to personnel groupings, are you seeing more exotic groupings or ones that maybe don't make sense to the untrained eye because they're looking at that situation as a 4-down situation as opposed to, well, if we don't get it on 3rd down, we can settle for 3. That they're in that mindset right now where they don't know if they can settle for 3, so that changes what you want to do, especially inside the red zone.
Yeah, I definitely saw that after halftime, if that makes sense. Before halftime, when we were still attempting to kick on 4th down, I don't think so, because I think we're trying to, do the whole chasing 3, but obviously we are still chasing. In the second half, though, I definitely agree with you. I definitely saw that as well. That definitely impacts your play calling a whole bunch when you're in 4-down territory, pretty much no matter where you're at on the field. We knew we were in 4-down territory once we crossed about the 40-yard line. So I do agree that probably did play an impact on what we saw, in the red zone, what we saw towards the goal line on 2nd down, because we knew we still had 2 more plays to get it. So I do think that's a good point.
Hey, I'm going to stand up for kickers here. And there is no doubt that Nebraska is not very good there. They're 4 of 9. Rutgers, Indiana, Nebraska are the only teams that haven't made a field goal of over 40 yards. I about fell out of my chair on Saturday when the BTN Plus Peacock broadcast said that Purdue had not attempted a field goal. I'm like, whoa. But I want to stop with the kicker discussion, because what if it's a snapper discussion? What if it's a long snapper, short snapper discussion, which adds to another thing on Ed Foley's plate of when did they know this was an issue? Because last year it wasn't. Thank God, Marco Ortiz. Mm-hmm. Did they think that Alvano was just good enough that he would be able to make up for some bad snaps? Because I think if you look in the second half, and I know that it was extra points, there wasn't an issue. And so it might be a short snapper, long snapper issue where it might have to be necessarily all on John Hull. We've got to start where it originates, right?
I 100% agree with you on that. That is a absolutely real thing. It's the whole operation that needs to be very sound. Like I assume Ed Foley does, but like you'll even see like high school coaches out there. I've been out there with the stopwatch, timing, looking at everything, just standing there in practice, timing with the, we got to get under this, we got to do under this, we got to make sure this whole operation's good. That operation has not been good, and that starts with the snapping. I think we can all agree with that. I was at least a little bit encouraged by the extra point snaps being much better after we switched snappers. But I do think, to your point, I do have the question of at what point did we realize that the snapping thing was going to be an issue? Because I would be a little bit surprised if it was in the middle of the fifth game that we knew this might be a problem, to me anyway. I'd be a little surprised if that was the answer there. I don't know. I just don't think all of a sudden in the middle of the fifth game at halftime they decided, oh, wait, we might want to change this up.
Right. Yeah, not a great look. Ben, I do want to go to the other side of the football. We were leading into this weekend saying that this was a game that the defense needed to look its part, especially knowing that essentially what Purdue was doing is a one-trick pony. They're going to run the football. They're not going to make any bones about it, and then maybe try to benefit in the passing game from that. Nebraska did a great job of limiting Love and Maccabee. What did you see about this defense that you can exhale on, and were there still, though, some things that do continue to be there for this defense that can be concerning?
Okay, so I can't come on here and also say that like Purdue's a very good offense, right? We all know they're not very good. No. With that being said,
why do you hate Graham Harrell?
That tells you all you need to know right there.
But with that being said, I do think that given like, hey, they're still a Big Ten opponent, and what do you want them to do? I think the black shirt defense came out there and absolutely performed. That touchdown there at the end of the game, I don't know about you guys. I don't really care about that. It is what it is. The game's out of reach at that point. So I'm not going to hold that super hard against them. So if you take that away, give up that field goal right after halftime, and that's about it. Like, hey, the other team, whether it's great coaching or not, they still got Division I Power 4 coaches as well. They're going to make adjustments and be able to try and make a drive coming out of halftime. So it is what it is. Ultimately, I felt very good about what the defense was doing. This was honestly, so we've kind of talked about it on here before, but like they've made a little bit of a scheme adjustment. They're running a lot more cover 2, Tampa 2, match quarters. And I haven't hated it, but I haven't like loved it yet, if that makes sense, just because that's not what we did that much last year. And like we did a really good job on defense last year. So I was kind of the mentality, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then last week, like really made me feel that way after we got torched all game. But I do have to say that was the best that I've seen us do. And it at least that was the first game when I went back and rewatched it. That was like, all right, I'm cool with that. Like that John Bullock pick 6 was Tampa 2 defense, like to a T. That was absolutely beautiful. Him dropping that extra bit literally put him right in the window. I don't know. It might have caught Purdue off guard a little bit with him dropping so much, but hey, I'll take it. So defensively, I say all that to say I feel a lot better with it. Yes, it was not a good offense, but like you can only play who you play.
Sure.
Whoever's against you, it's your job to go do your job. And that's why I feel good about it. I would still like to see, I want to see more of this going forward as opposed to what we saw in Northern Iowa and obviously Illinois. So I do think the next few games, we're going to have a little bit more of a test than maybe we thought we did. And when we were looking at the harder part of our schedule, I don't know if we were talking about at the beginning of the season, the first, this middle part of the schedule being tougher than the back half, but that may end up being the case, believe it or not.
They, I think they played admirable, considering the week before on defense, and they were able to get off the field. I think there were only 3 drives that were 6 plays or more. I'm with you on the last garbage touchdown. But if we were having a draft today, not of what they can be or what they have been, but just how they've played, I'm gonna take the first pick. I'm gonna take John Bullock, who is a game changer, and just recorded, I believe, the highest PFF defensive grade for a Nebraska player since PFF has started doing college football. If you are taking the second pick of the most important or the player on defense that you think is playing the best as we speak, it would be?
I'm going to say Isaac Gifford. And the reason I'm saying this is not necessarily because I think he's playing out of his mind football-wise right now. I think he's playing fine, don't get me wrong. But the reason that I'd say he's, what you said, most important is I see him directing a lot of that secondary. I see him pre-snap doing a lot of the direction, calling things out, switching guys out, fixing alignment. So if I'm just talking about what I think is most important, I think he's playing really well. I don't want that to be misconstrued with what I'm saying. I just think his leadership and ability right now is just a combination of very good leaders, and I feel like defensively you always need a really good senior leader.
I agree with you. And then we could throw Sierra Wright, who has been a bright light with Tommy Hill's injury. Ben, I know you'll have a busy week leading into another important game on Saturday. Where can people find you, and what do you have content-wise coming up this week?
We got the BA Coaches Show on YouTube. If you go check that out, I'm going to do my Purdue recap. That'll be coming out here in a few hours. And then go check out nbnrpodcast.com. Go to their blog section, Red Zone Reflections. I have a blog that'll be coming out either tonight before No Block, No Rock, or it'll just come out tomorrow morning, depending on when I get time today to get that finished. So yeah, if you go to those, and I appreciate all the support, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, thanks.